This is mounting directories extended for 16-bit Intel assembly with DOSBox-X and also Turbo Assembler. In my first getting started video, I've shown you the overall process and I've received some questions about mounting directories. So let's take a more in-depth look at that today. So we'll first take a visual look at the working directory in green, the code directory in red, and also the binaries directory in blue. If you remember my last video, I have said that you have to mount the working directory to a drive letter in DOSBox-X, and the code and binaries directory should be in the working directory. You can have your working directory be the same as your code directory. If you see this example, the first example here, if you have mounted the working directory, DOSBox would be able to access the code directory and also binaries directory, which is inside the working directory. If you have mounted the code directory, however, you can also still access your code and also your binaries. But it is not always that case. If you take a look at the second example, we can see that the code and binaries directories are in the working directory, but they are not in each other. So in this case, if you have mounted the code directory or you have mounted the binaries directory, you cannot access the other directory. So if you have mounted the code directory, you cannot access the binaries directory, which is a problem. So you would mount the workings directory. And then I have also received questions about what are binaries. The binaries are the executable programs with the exe extension, such as your TASM exe, TD-exe, and also your TLink exe. Why you want them in a separate directory is because once you start writing your assembly code, the files would start to pile up and it would get cluttered. So what you want to do is you do not want to see these executable programs together with your code files. So what you want to do is you want to put them in a folder and forget about it. Personally, I prefer this second example right here, where you have the code and your binaries directory separated. You can use this third example here, but I would not recommend it. All right, after mounting the working directory in DOSBox-X, that directory would now be referred to with the drive letter. If you do not remember the command, here is the command that I've shown you in the getting started video. So we have mount D, which is the drive letter I've selected. This drive letter can be from A to Y, I believe. Usually I'll just stick to C, D, E, F, G. So let's take a look at the first example. In the first example, I've decided that this is my working directory and this will be my code directory, which is just a folder called lab in the documents folder. And for my binaries, I have put them in TASM bin in the documents directory. So remember in my first video, I've told you to actually create those folders first. I've seen people try to mount a directory that do not exist in in the PC to DOSBox-X. So you must create the folders that you want to work in first. So you can have a separate one like this, or if you have referred, you can to the first example here, you can do something like this as well. All right, so create those folders first. Right, after mounting it with this command, so my working directory would now be in drive D in DOSBox-X. So we'll change it to drive D with D:, and then to access your code directory, we would cd lab, change directory to lab. And then to set the path to the binaries, we would use set path equal to %path%, semicolon, and then this directory right here, DTSM bin. We no longer use the directory referred to in your PC. So we would use what DOSBox-X would understand as the directory to your binaries. So similarly in example 2, we have decided the working folder will be this, and then code and binaries like so. So if we mount C, we would change our drive letter to C in DOSBox-X. And then to access our code, we would cd lab. And then for setting path to the binaries, we would do set path equal to %path %, semicolon, and then C lab bin. We no longer use this one. We use the one that I highlighted in blue here. Right, example 3. We have decided working code and the binaries directory. Remember, you have to create these ones first. You don't have to follow mine. You can do C users, whatever your name is. You can have them in downloads. You can have them in pictures. You can have them in video. You can even have them on the desktop. But do remember that when you are in DOSBox-X, you will have a command line interface and you don't want it to be cluttered. So I would recommend you to use a folder that is kind of tidy, right? So for example 3, we have used the drive E, we have used this as the working directory. And in DOSBox-X, we'll use E colon to change the drive. And then to access our code, we would cd documents/lab. And to set the path, we will use set path equal to %path %, semicolon, and then followed by this directory right here. So we have set the path to the binaries, and then for the bonus for this video, I'm going to show you how to mount it using the GUI, so you don't have to use this mount command right here. So let's go into our DOSBox-X. So in DOSBox-X, go up here to drive, pick a letter. I'm gonna take what's available. E is available, so let's take E. So we'll click on mount folder as hard drive. Then we will select our working directory. In this case, like I've told you before, mine is in documents. So let's go into this PC and then documents. So I want documents as my working directory. So I will select documents. If you want, say, lab to be your working directory, you can always click on lab and then click OK. For this example right here, I will use the documents folder. So right, click OK. Okay, it says it has been mounted. So let's try it out. So let's go into E, right? And then we will have our code folder, which is called lab. Let's take a look at it. Oh, actually, we should just list out everything we have here. Right, we can see lab and we can see TASM. Let's take a look in lab. So this is my code directory. Yep, everything looks to be intact. So let's get out of there. And then we can also go into the binaries directory and take a look here. Yes, all of my executable programs are listed down. So we will then set our path equal to %path %, semicolon, and then followed by E colon. Remember there is a slash here, TASM /bin. Sorry, bin. Right, so now we will get out of here to test whether the path is set correctly. We can just type TASM. If you see this, that means DOS is finding the TASM program in the path. If you do not, if it failed, you would see something like this. I do not have a program called TASS, so let's try that. You would see a bad command or file name. So if you see TASM, right? If you see something like this, that means you have successfully set the path. Right, there is also another tip. If you click the up arrow button on your keyboard, you can cycle up whatever commands that you have input into DOSBox. So The reason I have not shown you this in the first video is because I want you to automate. So remember, in the final section of the first video, I have told you to go into configuration tool. I've told you to go into auto exec, and I've told you to type in the 3 commands, which is the mounting, changing of drives, and also setting the path. So to do a quick refresher, let's do mount E. My working directory is C users Ian Lee documents, and then changing the drive. Remember, DOS is not case sensitive, and then we will set our path. And there we have it. So once we save this and then we restart DOSBox-X, we can straight away get into programming. Right, thank you.